How? Welcome to another installment of Old Men Yell at Cloud. This is your host, Patrick, and joined by our other hosts, Christopher Brown.
Hey.
And Jim Schultz.
What the fuck?
Okay, I'm sorry. You're gonna swear at me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
To be fair, your intro was very loud, and it surprised me. It startled me.
I was trying to do an impression of the parrot, to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
you
what the
guys
fuck
have seen the
parrot.
parrot, right?
Yeah.
It's a good video.
It's a good video. There's a parrot, and it says, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, you guys should check out youtube.com.
Yeah, that's YOU tube.com.
Hold on, I gotta write this down. We are joined today by some good friends of mine. They're in the, I don't really know what kind of genre you would call it, so I'm just gonna call them Bush Scrunity. And also the local doom metal outfit Vos. That's VOS. We have two of them, actually. We got Nate Nemitz.
What's up, guys?
And Kevin Lynch.
Hello.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Excited to have you guys aboard on the old Omyak train.
Thanks for having us,
We're
man.
thrilled to be here, Patrick.
Are you?
Yeah.
Thanks for waking up for me, buddy.
It's my mullet helped me.
It's true. I was
He
seated,
hath risen.
I was seated in a chair across from his bed at about 6 o'clock this evening.
Just sitting at the foot of his bed,
Yeah.
waiting.
Yeah, just waiting. And then I didn't say anything, and he said, "Hmm?" And I said, "You got to get up, man. We got shit to do." And he said, "Oh, you're absolutely right."
Yeah. Just like my Uncle Jim when I was 2 years old.
Hey.
We are here today talking about Angel Dust by Faith No More from the wonderful year of 1992. This record came out on June 8th of that year. Was released by Slash and Reprise Records. It is the follow-up to 1989's highly successful The Real Thing, which contained tracks like Epic and The Rest. And this is also the final album to feature guitarist Jim Martin. This was also the second album to feature vocalist Mike Patton, and by this point he has had a much more substantial influence on the band's music, having been hired after the other band members had written recorded vocals for The Real Thing.
Fire me from your band? I'll show you. I'll write your songs.
Angel Dust is Faith No More's best-selling album to date, having sold over 2.5 million copies worldwide, which is kind of odd because I don't really think of this record as being a huge singles record. I tend to attribute that more to The Real Thing. So, a little background on this record. Following the success of their previous album, The Real Thing, and its subsequent tour, Faith No More took a break for a year and a half before beginning work on the follow-up, Angel Dust. During this time, Mike Patton rejoined his high school band, Mr. Bungle, to record their self-titled debut album, and this kind of had a big effect on where Mike Patton would take the direction of Faith No More in general, kind of taking them from this, sort of a mashup of new wave and funk metal to something that was like a lot more avant-garde, which was sort of more what Mr. Bungle was up to on their end.
Everyone in the band got a haircut as well.
Thank you. That was an important part to bring up.
I know it looked like you were going to miss that, but I think even more so than the writing process was
The haircut
they all
process
got
was super
haircuts
important.
except for Puffy and Jim Martin.
Right.
Who continued to sport their trademark dreadlocks and kinky hair, respectively.
Exactly. You two look like you're conspiring over there.
Oh,
about
I was looking up the What the Fuck parrot, and there's a whole bunch of videos of parrots saying awful things, and one of them is a 4.5-minute video of a parrot saying, "Sniff, sniff, I smell pussy."
What's shocking about that to me is that someone actually took the time to say that enough for the parrot to think like, oh, okay, that's my mate. I need to.
Do you love me?
It's an English parrot.
It's it's got to be an Australian guy.
No one's saying wanker.
Can you find, is there something more, is there a parrot maybe that says, "It's it," or if you say "it's it," the parrot says, "What is it, brat?" Like back, for like...
This one's the best one.
poetry.
So the lyrics for Angel Dust were written for the most part by vocalist Mike Patton. He got his inspiration for the lyrics from many different places, such as the Oxford Capacity Analysis, Scientology, fortune cookies, late night television. He engaged in a sleep deprivation experiment and wrote Caffeine, which I guess you can kind of point the dots there. Patton has kind of said in the past that caffeine is like the one drug that he's into. He's not really like into psychedelics or other shit so much, but he likes a good old pot of coffee.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, to be honest, it's what works for me most of the time. I wake up in the morning, I tap some coffee, I take a shit and write some lyrics. That's how I do, baby.
It's definitely my drug of choice.
That's a unique.
What,
that's
shitting?
A unique opinion.
Caffeine.
Oh,
Yeah. There's a really great interview with Mike Patton that you can actually find on here's another shameless plug for youtube.com. That's youtube.com.
As opposed to MeTube, referring to you.
Hashtag MeTube.
MeTube.
Just
Okay.
aside, is MeatTube a porn site?
I
no,
think so.
RedTube is.
Oh.
No, MeatTube is the Sausage Consortium. Got that URL.
Fucking Big Sausage has their fingers in that
Yeah,
one.
They do.
KM
sausage
Foods
in the
is
red
just
tube.
MeatTube.com. No, but there's this great interview with Mike Patton that you can watch on YouTube.com for free. It was like he did it with MTV in 1992, like right after they'd finished tracking for the album, and it's a pretty tough video to miss. It's like really grainy quality. He's in like County Orange eating a sandwich. You could just type like Mike Patton interview, and it'll be the first thing that comes up. He talks a lot about like his songwriting process. And that's.
So that was kind of something that I remember when I was first getting into this band. So I got into Faith No More when I was about 15 years old. I picked up a copy of The Real Thing and Significant Other by Limp Bizkit on the same day.
Oh, what a duo.
What a duo, right?
Talk about the crossroads.
I know, right?
So I
Folk music blooms best at the crossroads.
So I bought this album. I went out and bought this album just because like I saw it at like FYE or whatever the place that I was. But I went to the record store with the intention of buying Pink Friday by Nicki Minaj, and I bought that and this album on the same day. And I've been bumping both ever since.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That seems to speak to your personality.
I saw him later that day. We dined together actually in downtown Boston at the Wendy's, and he.
It's a quality
he had
downtown crossing
mentioned to
Wendy's.
me-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no drive-through.
That's
just classic.
WEN.
Yeah, I
D.
Speaking of that Wendy's,
You'll know it by the square patties. They're the only place
yeah.
that does that in the Northeast region.
I'm about
That's
90% sure.
SQUA. Okay.
I'm about 90% sure I saw Sarah Jessica Parker come out of that Wendy's the other day.
Nice.
Because I was in Five Guys looking across the street.
Have you ever heard?
And she's not a Five Guys guy.
The saddest celebrity spotting story I have ever heard in my life. No, actually, have you ever heard Caswell before? He's a rapper out of New York, and he's fucking amazing. But he's got this song. I think it might just be called Beyonce. But the hook of it is just this weird little dude with a high pitched voice just repeating, "I seen Beyonce at Burger King." Over and over, and it's amazing. I strongly recommend you
Why
check
is he
this
so
out.
indignant about it?
I don't know.
It's not the place you want to run into Beyonce.
She was eating.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? Yeah, so that is actually, it's a great video for any of you out there who are kind of interested in the making of this record. I feel like in general, this record was weirdly well documented for when it came out. Because, like I said, you can find this video. It's like
I think
maybe
it was part of a documentary too, or some kind of like special that back when when MTV was shifting away from music,
right.
and it was sort of there are a couple of clips.
They were shifting into talking about music,
Right,
which is kind of what we do.
Exactly. It was very influential. I mean, it's precursor. But they were speaking. There's one particularly interesting scene where you can see the rift starting to form. Or I'm sure it had already formed, but you're seeing it manifest between Mike Patton and Jim Martin.
Oh yeah, you could really it's so fucking palpable.
And it's like it's so funny because Jim Martin is exactly he acts the way he plays guitar, where it's like something will be going on, and he'll just come in like, you know, like what's up, you know, like.
Well, he was a total metal bro, and I think he didn't really jibe with Mike Patton. Was
He sounds
very
so
like ironic.
wildly out of place on this album, in any realm outside of like you're saying irony. Yeah, like it like.
He had a fucking flying V, like unironically. For fuck's sake.
We all know that
in the
flying V
epic
should
video.
be illegal.
Oh, don't say that to Todd Bose.
This side of 1990, man, flying. Well,
Unless you're strong bad.
yeah,
That's true. Some of them actually do have great fucking metal tones, I will say.
Andrew Silverio from Titans, I think, plays a flying V. He gets away with it.
Yeah.
My little brother had, or at least had, I don't know if he still has it, but he had like a kid size, like a half size Epiphone flying V. He was so stoked when he got it when he was like 4 years old.
Oh, I have one of those too, actually. I like to practice sitting down, frankly. So I mean, it's like you know.
Those half size are good.
I think Kurt Vile plays Flying V too.
All right, that's enough about Kurt Vile.
Seriously. So yeah, I don't know. I got into Faith No More around when I was 15. This was 1999, so this was actually a year after they broke up, and I got. I really kind of dug into their website, faithnomore.com, because it was still fairly active because they had only been broken up for about a year.
That was one of the first websites too, right?
Yes, one of the first websites ever.
Yeah, DARPA had a website. There
Al
was
Gore.
Alta Vista.
Oh, there was Alta
Netscape
Vista.
and Faith No More.
Oh yeah.
Space Jam.
Well, Faith No More really didn't they originally
Which
had a
hasn't been
Gopher
updated
site,
in,
right? That you could only get out with the Gopher, that whole precursor.
Oh right, and there was the hamster one.
And actually, part of that
Ex-hamster?
documentary was them transferring some of the codes over into HTML, which had just been invented.
Yeah, it was a big lead up to trying to invent that. They were trying to get the right formulas, trying to get the right flavors to finally get those letters together, HTM and L.
HTML plus with like a star at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean it's
Never mind.
their efforts are very much
You can
appreciated.
cut that out if you want.
I think they put Jim Martin on the case. They were like, Jim, figure this out. And then he did. And then they recorded most of this record. He came back and was like, I got the website all squared away. So what do you, and they were like, you know, and then it was like he recorded the guitars and that was pretty much it.
So Jim Martin got put in charge of social media, basically.
Right.
He was
yeah.
the content creator for Faith No More. They trusted that guy with that. They trusted the guy who's wearing fucking green sunglasses.
Well, now it's an important job, and you know, but at the time, he was like, you know, I think he just drove out to Death Valley and was like, anyone. Didn't really reach out to anybody.
So my favorite song.
All right, yeah. So let's bring it on back to what we do here. Jim, what is your favorite song?
I don't know.
Okay, cool.
He didn't seem to like any of them.
I was bobbing. I was bobbing my head. I'm gonna go with Midlife Crisis because I'm boring. It's the only one I really knew. It's a great song.
It's
That
a great
song
fucking
is great.
song.
It's like a sick song. It's got really like unconventional drums on it. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of really like Ringo-esque drum
Yeah.
playing where
Well, the
he's
main-
just like he's on the toms and
The main
only.
drum line too. It samples prominently. What's the song? It's a song by Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, so there's a breakdown or I think they sample it. I forget the name of the song. Was it Cecilia?
Yeah,
Can't
sure.
recall.
I think
Sure.
it was Call Me Al.
That was,
Garfunkel was not involved with Call Me Al.
They sampled that reverse bass line and then they put it the right way forward.
That's the definition of avant-garde postmodernism.
Horse patoots.
There was one commentator mentioned that the sampling was gratuitous. on this
Yeah,
album.
so
if you read
they talk about it a little
Wikipedia
bit.
page, it's WIKI.
So yeah, kind of going back on what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, there's a really extensive Wikipedia article out there on Wikipedia.com.
It's rich.
It's very robust.
.org, actually.
And they mentioned that the
That's
recording
ORG.
company was actually there's a section on the samples that are used on this record. There are many samples used on Angel Dust to the point that it was called gratuitous by the record label executives. They were concerned about the volume of samples that were used. They came from such sources as Simon and Garfunkel, Diamanda Galas, ZEV, I don't know what that is, and The Wizard of Oz. It did come from Cecilia. Holy shit.
Oh, look at you.
Lucky guess.
There it is.
And there's also clips from Kronos Quartet. I know that's on Malpractice, and let's see, Allegro Molto was the name of that one. And actually, Roddy Bottom had a DAT tape that he just sort of carried around with him and just recorded random sounds that were kind of featured, like little bird noises here and there.
What's interesting to hear it now, and it feels like the sampling is, I don't want to say nondescript, but it's appropriately, dispersed. I feel like at the time it was such a new thing.
Not over the top.
Yeah.
I actually
By
really
today's
loved the
standards.
use of
Yeah.
samples on this record. It's kind of it was unique on this record in particular because they didn't really do much of it ever again. It was kind of like kept like he was mostly just fucking with it on this record.
And it did give it kind of a unique sound that set it apart without making it, glaring. They weren't like garish samples, and it
timestamps it a bit, but in a way that I find like very appealing and comforting in a way.
Well, now
It's very 1992.
I mean,
in that
sampling
way.
has found its way like into a ton of rock since then. I mean, they sort of set the groundwork for what would become the living nightmare of new metal.
Yeah, the elephant in the room.
It's my favorite new metal band.
The elephant in the room. Cage the elephant. Christopher, what was your favorite track?
My favorite song, by a wide margin, was RV.
Backside melts into the sofa. My world, my TV, my food. Besides listening to my belly girl.
RV is
Great fucking choice.
one of it's my favorite Faith No More song, easily, by a wide distance. It's got a great sense of humor. It's got great musicianship going on, and it dares to be different.
Very cool. Very cool. Daring to be different from
Yeah,
Christopher
man.
Brown.
Yes.
D to be D. Nate.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, so mine was also RV, as you can
Yeah.
tell. For those of you listening at home and who don't have
Oh, I love it.
the-
So now
the
I don't
video
have to. I don't
cast.
have to do two samples for you guys. I can
should,
cut it right
though.
through.
You should. In fact, for mine, can you use the breakdown part where it's like that part? All right, cool,
Perfect. I'll do
Yeah,
that.
all right.
I'm a swing guy. Throw a boat. Oh, the shower curtain rod. Yeah, swing. Toss me inside.
So yeah, that's my favorite. I just think that it has all the best ingredients of like a song as far as music that I like personally. I know that it's like it's wickedly an outlier on this
Yeah.
album. Like it's so far apart from anything.
I
else
would
that you
almost
could
call
hear.
it a novelty.
Yeah,
To
it's
some
like
effect.
the only other thing that even has like a triplet, like 3-time feel to it is the Midnight Cowboy shit at the end, and like that plus like it sounds like the underwater Mario level music.
Yeah.
And it features like a styling of vocals that I'm a really big fan of. Like I love that like this is when people started experimenting with having what you were saying set the soundscape more of what you were recording instead of letting all the instruments do that and then you're just singing your words over it. It's like even like in 1991 on The Pod by Ween, they had that song Pollo Asado where it's just like
Yeah.
a guy speaking like it's a drive-through, talking to the cashier.
Well, there's like a guitar happening in the background.
And exactly, right? And that's like the focal point of it is like, how are the words affecting what's like happening? And I guess as like a part-time vocalist, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I know that that Ween song, it's like it kind of has a similar vibe to it, where it's there's musicality to it, but it's also just like really fucking funny to listen to.
It's kind of just like a cross section of something that's happening in real life. Like, not to go back to that interview on YouTube.com, but
that's why.
He talks about like a lot of his songwriting process was just kind of observing, like
right.
And just taking it all in. And there's a couple of songs. He says that a lot of the songwriting process is influenced by satanic, heavy, easy listening music. Spoilers.
That sounds about right.
But yeah, and this, I just feel like it just paints like such a picture in a way that I don't want to say only they can, but it's like only they could have painted this exact picture with that like arrangement.
Yeah, I think he has the the dynamics of his voice to kind of pull off this character.
That real gravelly.
Yeah,
kinda,
but it's
anybody tell me if I was getting.
Yeah, it's like just cartoony enough for it to like not be glaring, but also just be like super funny and something to chuckle along to. And
such like an on the nose character representation without like offending anybody in particular.
Exactly. And I think that's something that's very interesting about Mike Patton, and something that I also remember reading on faithnomore.com. One of the original websites. That's FAI.
All right. We have juiced that as much as we can. Everyone that is off the table at this point.
All right.
We're 21 minutes in and we killed the
Yeah, for fuck's sake, we are 21 minutes in. We need to start talking about this goddamn album.
Right. Fine. All right. Forget what I was going to say. Kevin, what was your favorite track?
I gotta go with RV, man. I have.
We got a majority.
Well, if I have to, I could come up with like a second place, but to me, it's just the best, man.
This episode is gonna have so many fucking clips of this song. It's great.
And it's a shame too, because I feel bad. Some nice person is gonna listen to our testimonials and listen to this song after me. Like, it's fucking what the fuck? But like, no, I mean to me, exactly. They're gonna fucking parrot that shit up. No, to me, it's the epitome of Faith No More at this time, where it was like the perfect fusion of like this sort of lowbrow, cheesy, middle America kind of sensibility with also this avant-garde. I mean, you listen to a lot of the instrumentation on this record is a lot of, cheesy synths, over-the-top, cock-rocky kind of guitars and stuff. This song doesn't really even feature that, but something about just the overall, the character that he's portraying. And it also, at the same time, has almost this kind of romantic Serge Gainsbourg kind of like deep, he's not singing at all. You listen to these Serge Gainsbourg songs, and it's like, I guess he's crooning, but really he's just talking kind of sexy. And I don't know why.
Smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, it's so raspy and split, like, I'll just tell him like my daddy told me, you never amount to nothing. He like breathes into the mic, and it's all, it's human. And yeah, I think the musicianship on that song too is it's got some of the best guitar on the album.
Well, I think it's also like it's the moment that you realize that this record is a totally different beast from the real thing.
Well, and it's interesting you say that too, because I feel like there was actually an analog on the real thing. If you'll remember the last track, The Edge of the World, which is
very true.
The kind of jazzy piano ballad about a 40-year-old man, or I guess 47 probably, because he's 40 years older, he admits, than the person he's courting in the song.
Oh, that's right.
He's like a child
I usually
predator.
don't listen to that song.
It's upsetting, but it's kind of a similar thing where you have this kind of like a totally outlying piano-heavy kind of, I don't want to say upbeat, but it doesn't, follow the same heavy kind of, heavy metal motif.
Definitely had a lot more levity to it.
And then I think you kind of see that a little bit on the subsequent albums, but for the most part, I feel like that was, it almost seems like that was that version of that kind of feeling. And I think they extended it further where you have more of a sympathetic character singing or crooning, or just talking, however you want to define it.
Spitting rhymes.
But yeah, it's good.
Patrick, how about you?
So, man, that was a tough call for me.
RV.
It is not RV. So there are a couple that I was kind of tossing between. This record is one that I discovered when I was, like 15 years old and really starting to get into writing music and like kind of figuring out what excited me most about certain musicians and shit. I think the song that really sums up my feeling on the record the most is Everything's Ruined.
That's one of the bangers.
It's a beautiful song in a lot of ways, and just like it goes through like a lot of different feelings and emotions that are like all put together are they're very unique and sort of something that I feel like I, as an individual, could identify with a lot. It kind of goes through these, very. The intro kind of sounds like the Carpenters, or it's very like poppy and sweet, and then it kind of goes into these very like sweeping verses with like a tribal beat that's, almost sort of like early 90s dance, and then like these heavy metal crunch riffs come in, and then like these like huge soaring choruses.
It's got that 90s kick pattern.
It's got that 90s kick pattern. There's like this bridge that sort of comes towards the end, where like.
It's got some Mike Patton rap.
Like you just like doing these super over the top melodramatic vocals that are just like they're perfect for that moment, and they take it to this level that like it really sums up the sort of specific emotion that I get from this record, which is it's a amalgamation of like the celebration of music and also just not taking it seriously at all and just sort of like laughing in the face of its own pretension. And it doesn't, and like the balance of it is just like really well done, and the music video to this song is fucking hilarious and super low budget, and you can check that out on Why. Oh, I'm not going to do that joke again.
Get out of
Dude,
here.
already did.
Christopher is gonna stab
Dude,
a motherfucker.
I'm genuinely getting pissed off when you do it.
All right, I'm sorry.
You guys couldn't see it at home, but I was nodding fervently in agreement with everything Patrick just said about that song. That was probably my second pick for most favorite.
Yeah, same, second or third. It's the sweeping. It's like you were saying, like the sort of laughing in the face of the grandiosity that is that
Big
like
rock music.
But they pull it
big
off
rock
so
show.
effectively.
Well, yeah, you have like
and
these
it
sweeping.
it feels genuine.
It sounds like there's an orchestra until you listen to it, and it's very clearly a Casio keyboard.
Yeah,
it's like some kind of ersatz situation. But the energy is as if there were an orchestra. It's one. It's like I can't believe it's not orchestra.
Yeah, and like just as a ninth grader, like it aped a lot of emotions that I was feeling at the time, and yeah, it's a great fucking song. I still love it to this day. Jim, what's your least favorite song?
RV, I thought it sucked.
Close the thread down.
Nice.
That is the correct answer.
Talking to myself. Everybody's staring at me.
No, I just there's something like it was just when I first heard it. Oh, maybe part of it was because I was sitting in gridlock traffic trying to get to Patrick when it came on, and I was just like, "What the fuck is this?" I don't know, and it's just what you guys were talking about. It's just so like fucking out there. It's such an outlier, and like I don't know. I just couldn't get behind it. It was too goofy, and like I was thinking to myself, like I don't like this. It's too goofy, but at the same time, I love Primus, so it's like.
Well, if it helps, I love RV and I hate Primus.
Yeah, I know you.
There we go.
But yeah, I don't know. It just seemed too goofy and out of place for me.
Fair enough. Christopher.
For my part, I'm going to go smaller and smaller. They might have been there on the early side of things in '92, but for me, it's '90s Eastern inspired rock, color by numbers. There was nothing there that was really grabbing me.
Yeah, like a weaker track off of Dirt.
They had the what was it, the Hungarian minor scale going in there somewhere, I think.
Yeah, and it's just it was not really adding a lot to the sort of vernacular of '90s rock for me that wasn't put there by a lot of other people that were doing it a little bit better or a little bit more memorably for me personally.
Fair enough. Nate.
That's tough for me. I guess I have a tie for two, but if I have to say just one, it would probably be Kindergarten. I think for me, it's just like the most like easy, like kind of accessible song. Like, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but then it's just like the lyrical content like is a little juvenile-ish. Same thing with my other least favorite. Same thing with my other least favorite, which is Be Aggressive. But like I understand that it's juvenile because it's like kindergarten and stuff, and like I get it. It's written from like a young perspective. It's just not for me.
Yeah, so that song was supposed to be like teenage angst, but from the point of view of a kindergartner. And
right.
I think like I honestly think like some of the lyrics were yeah, I think like some of the lyrics were kind of cliche in some way.
Yeah.
Like it was a little too A to B. Like he could have been a little bit more imaginative. Like on the write it 100 times. Like that's a little bit A to B. I think.
For like an album that's supposed to be like the flagship of like Mike Patton's wild imagination coming into the works in like a major way, it's just this kind of didn't deliver as much as I'd like it.
Definitely.
You focus on his lyrics. I mean, Mike Patton, like always, is writing sort of juvenile lyrics. I find that like reading the lyrics to a Faith No More song versus listening to them is more of like a contrast. Whereas like Kindergarten, it's a different experience. He sort of just talks the lyrics a little bit. But even if you were to read like the lyrics to Smaller and Smaller, or Everything's Ruined, a bouncing little baby, a shiny copper penny, kind of, it's just like the words are humorously kind of juvenile. And bizarre.
So he was big into just writing lyric. He would say that like he would find words that sounded good before figuring out like the meaning behind them, so to speak.
Which I think is a good way of doing it. But
totally. And I that's like a huge thing that I've adopted from him is just like, you sort of shape phrases that sound good and you sort of work beyond that.
Whereas
so
I feel
things
like,
don't sound awkward.
Yeah, in
they
Kindergarten,
fit to your
more,
voice.
He was definitely more like enunciating what he was saying. Like I feel like he was trying to get those words across rather than...
he was reaching a little bit. So on that note, what was your least favorite?
This is a tough one. I might have to go with A Small Victory.
The happiest song on the album.
I love that song.
I love it too. Here's the thing. When I say it doesn't do it for me, I guess
it's just that it's your least favorite.
It's just
by
my least
comparison to the
them.
other tracks. Yeah.
Yeah, like it would have to be either that or maybe I don't know. It's got to be that one. That I like everything. Like Everything's Ruined sort of has a similar kind of. They were the singles, and Everything's Ruined though has a more. It's got more going on. I feel like
it's a little more dynamic.
I just
the emotions are a little more dramatic in Everything's Ruined, whereas A Small Victory felt like they were trying to write a pop song.
Hut, hut, hut.
Yeah, and the samples definitely date that song. It's a very 1992 song.
It just It also has a music video which is not low budget and is very silly, and it almost looks like it looks like the dramatized segments from like a History Channel documentary.
Yeah, it's like a Joel Schumacher film.
Yeah, just like weird, like kind of washed out transitions into like stock, what looks like stock footage, but was probably filmed for the occasion.
The budget for A Small Victory versus Everything's Ruined, those videos, it's pretty funny.
It's definitely got a poppy song. I think. Reading like contemporary reviews too, people seem to gravitate towards that song for some reason. I think maybe just because it is, on the accessible side of things.
Yeah, it's the most accessible, and
I think Midlife Crisis though is comparably accessible, but still
it has more flavor.
Edge. Yeah, it definitely is more.
There's a little more cheese on that taco.
I think coming from the U.S. too, it's hard to say because they just, they never charted here, really.
Oh, they were like Midlife Crisis was probably the only single that was like played on your AAFs and BCNs at the time
from this album.
Correct.
And even still, and they don't play them anymore.
Right.
Whereas like a lot of other kind of hits, you'll still hear Epic, here and there.
And actually, you'll hear like Last Cup of Sorrow.
Last Cup of Sorrow, I was going to say, you hear a lot.
Or you hear. We care a lot on fucking Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe.
That's right. Chuck Mosley, R.I.P.
Mike Rowe, not to completely derail us, but does he remind anyone else a lot of Jim Varney?
Now that you mention it, yes.
All right, cool. Just wanted to get that out in the open.
Similar
Maybe
smells.
it is him.
That'd be so good. He faked his death to just work in dirt.
And he basically
garbage
does
man
the
like he
same
was
thing
in
as he did before. Yeah, it's just Ernest goes to be a garbage man.
Hey,
Ernest
Vern!
goes to
Hey, Vern!
clean the sewer.
I'm gonna go work at some shit.
I'm
I'm gonna go inseminate a kangaroo. Hey, Bert, check this out. My least favorite was RV.
All right, Patrick, thank you.
So, that being said,
got a
it was
divided room in here,
just
man.
that. It was a least favorite. I fucking love this album. I had to pick one. This song is just like, I think, has the least connection with me. And that's really just it. It is a bit goofy, but I appreciate what he was doing, and I actually, I appreciate what he was doing on the track. It's just the one that, musically didn't really stick with me as much. Jim, what was your... Are we on MVP now?
We are.
All right, what was your MVP moment?
This is going to be no surprise. It's going to be the 7/8 part in Malpractice. Fucking brutal.
Now, was that the Shackler's Revenge part? The part that reminded me a lot of Shackler's Revenge from Chinese Democracy?
Not that part, but I think it was in the same song, right?
Yes, Christopher Brown, noted listener of Chinese Democracy.
I would say listener is a weird way of putting that.
Well, I mean, you've listened to it before. I don't think anyone else in this room has listened to it.
No, I've listened to it a few times.
I think it popped up on Rock Band or something like that, and that's how
Not the
I
whole
heard
album, though?
No, just
Christopher's listened to the whole album.
Yeah. Dude, why would you not listen to that when that fucking shit comes out?
Has that been on
like the
Jukebox
most
Zeros
mythic?
yet?
It's the most mythic fucking shelved
Piece of crap.
vaporware of an album that we've had in our lifetime. It actually surfaces, and you didn't listen to it?
Yeah.
No, not really.
I spared myself.
Not even with that Buckethead.
And the Wu-Tang album that Martin Shkreli bought.
Yeah.
Those are like the two.
Exactly.
Hey, man, I think, while we're on the topic of Faith No More, Sol Invictus, did anyone listen to that, huh?
Yes.
No.
great.
I liked it.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome,
I didn't
man.
hear it,
was
but-
just a fucking lot better than
Solid B+.
Chinese democracy. That's
Oh, says Mister. I haven't listened to it.
Listen, I read the
a couple of
Pitchfork review.
cuts off of there, all right.
But yeah,
I
Malpractice.
saw them on that tour, man.
Malpractice
It's,
rips.
didn't
That's
do
like
it for
literally
me,
all I
man.
put on my notes was rips, especially for its time. Like,
I almost
want to
go back and say that was my favorite. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. Put out a song that rips as hard as Malpractice does in 1992. I defy you.
I think it, like, within the context of what the band was like, what their typical Irv was, it was definitely a lot harder edged and like very sort of disjointed. Christopher.
So one thing this album fucking excelled at, I will say, is breakdowns.
Yeah.
Any song that had a breakdown, they fucking nailed it on it. And the one from Kindergarten was my favorite, where they had the fucking bass groove with the strings, and then the megaphone vocals came in with the guitar and shit. Yeah, that was a fucking sweet ass part, and that was
The auctioneer vocals and
Yeah,
then, like,
exactly.
It goes into the bass solo.
yeah, exactly, and that just that little moment was it was a little treat.
I think I would say that's probably my favorite moment on Kindergarten for that track. It's a good little groove, that boop.
Yeah, with the strings, and yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, reminds me of better times. Nate, what was your MVP moment?
My MVP moment. I would have to say the pre-chorus in Smaller and Smaller. And every time it happens, I just think that, like, if you're gonna pick like a little chunk of this album to just like pass on to aliens in space, it's just like the
It's on the
chord.
Cassini. Is that the one that they sent out?
Is that the one where he's like, no, no, no.
No, it's just the one that it starts. It's like two really guttural, like diaphragm screams,
Oh,
and
right.
then one really Mike Patton like zombie scream, and then it just goes straight into the chorus. It just like something about that. Just like what people don't realize is like belting that kind of like stuff. Like you're singing a note there, like just like anybody will go in vocal practice. Anybody who's screaming will go. And like, like he's not just like belting nonsense. It's like that chord that is formed by all of the instruments playing at that one time, fucking flawless.
Fuck
And
yeah.
and that's the MVP moment.
God, I'm just imagining the capsule that we'd send up into space featuring that. Like, what else would be in it? Just like a couple doubles from White Castle. And
Shamrock Shake.
yeah, fucking Sergeant Slaughter action figure from G.I. Joe.
A Tamagotchi.
Cool.
I hope the wrestling album with the
wrestling
If you only knew what I'm gonna do to you. That album.
the one with Captain Lou Albano on it.
The first.
The
one.
wrestling album, the first one.
Okay. I think that song's from the second one.
There's a second one?
Oh yeah.
Did you know about this, Christopher?
No.
All right, well, we'll take this offline. Kevin, what was your MVP moment?
My MVP moment. I'd have to go, again, a breakdown in Smaller and Smaller. That appropriated part there.
That part is
Eastern
actually
Rock
really
by
great.
numbers, as you said, Chris. Whatever, they filled those numbers to as well as anyone could have. I think that's the part that gets stuck in my head the most. And I remember when I first started listening to this album, that part would get stuck in my head, and I'd be like walking around town, whatever, and I'd hear in my head like it's just such like a strange thing to start to kind of hear in your mind and try to pinpoint. It's like I never would have guessed. It wasn't until I listened to it, I'm like, oh, that's where, there's
the feel change is like super jarring and random too.
Yeah, and then the transition back in where he's like, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey, like right back into just and then the guitar solo right after that, and you're home, baby.
If it makes you feel any better, I did note that I like the breakdown on that.
Nice, excellent, fantastic.
Fuck yeah.
No,
So,
I mean, it's
it's a killer breakdown.
I think and this was back before. Now I feel like it's funny talking about breakdowns, not talking about just the part of the hardcore song where it's like
The drop.
Yeah, with the bell.
Yeah. Ding. Like that
crab.
I grew up with that being a breakdown, but really
Crabcore.
the breakdown is just like the third section or fourth,
That's
it's
the
the
C
bridge section kind of, but one that takes it away from the song.
And then thrusts it back in.
In contrast with I feel like certain bands and certain I think the bridge section a lot of times is kind of a nondescript step back. It's like
right.
We'll take you a little bit away just to just long enough so that you miss us, and then we'll play the chorus again. Whereas Faith No More on this record especially really will just it's almost like fucking Don't Fear the Reaper. It's just it's like, is this the same song? Oh yeah,
Sure. Well, I think Mike Patton, he was his contributions to this record were, probably the biggest, and he's really into film scores. We were kind of talking about this, and there is, I think those breakdowns are almost like they have a cinematic effect to them, where they're really they're painting one picture in your head, and then it takes you to this different scene that's has a complete tonal shift. It's almost like it's a different song. They just took a piece of tape and punched it in right there, and then brings you right back. I always thought that was a really cool disorienting effect. It's something I've kind of adopted into a lot of music that I've written.
Really? I said those exact words today while we were listening to Fake Blues at one point. I'm like, is this the same song? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, where it goes into that Eastern Music by Numbers section.
Yes, of course.
Also known as Fake Blue Velvet, starring Elvis Presley.
Yeah, well, that's how you brought that in.
Well, I mean,
Perfect.
February is the shortest month, so we can forgive you.
for my choices.
Those last 3 days were the ones that you were going to spend.
I did a lot of work on those last 2 days. Actually, I randomly had the day off from work and was like, I'm gonna just do some last minute sweetening, and spent 12 hours doing shit.
Well, it paid off, baby.
So gonna stay on brand here. My favorite moment was a breakdown as well, and it is the section in Malpractice. Keyboards come in and it just gets super mellow and really pretty and sorrowful, and that tonal shift away from the rest of that song, which we had brought up, is just super aggressive and diabolical and dissonant, and then it just goes into this really pretty moment for a section. I always really appreciated that shift. It was like they were trying to sort of part the kimono, if you will, for a moment, and then go right back into absurd insanity that was Malpractice and the sort of discordant nature of it.
I want to take a sidebar for a second here and
Excellent.
say I don't want to have McDonald's ever again.
And we learned our lesson finally.
Those touchscreen machines are the worst thing that ever happened because I feel no guilt when I order food. So I just order a bunch of ridiculous shit. But I think I might die in my sleep tonight. And if I do, I want you guys to avenge my death. And I want you to do it by, first of all, digging up that copy of Significant Other that you bought way back in the day.
Oh, where is it?
And blasting that as you destroy that McDonald's down the street.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, I
I
can
will
just
break
imagine a
stuff just
montage
blasting.
of us just to the chorus of Nookie as I have like a golf club like going to a glass.
I came into this world as a reject.
But speaking of shitty new metal, my comparable album, and I don't know why I went to this. Well, I kind of do, but do you guys remember the band Mushroomhead?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
That's fine.
Mushroomhead's pretty cool, man, as far as new metal goes.
I just remember listening to the fucking was it Sun Doesn't Rise, and I could hear that song as I was listening to Mike Patton.
So I mean, Mushroomhead was like very much influenced by Faith No More.
And now
most of
I
those
made
bands
that connection today.
Yeah.
So yeah, their album, what was it called? 13. I think it was 2003. It came out or something like that. I had a friend who was obsessed with them. Yeah. Like, slept over my house and made me watch like a fucking documentary about them.
About the band that named themselves after a dangus.
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect.
You know, I never noticed that.
Yeah, me neither. Sadly,
I guess it's because I've never thought about them like critically ever. But
wait, isn't it? It's a Can song, isn't it? Mushroomhead.
Mushroom.
Or it's just called Mushroom.
Mushroom.
But he
Mushroom.
talks about Mushroomhead.
I was so Mushroomhead.
Yeah.
I was born and I was dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damo he's coming, right? I think he's coming to some local club with.
Is he really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Tago Mago, previous episode. Check it out.
For my comparable, I'm gonna go with kind of a weird one. I'm gonna say "Rabies" by Skinny Puppy, for that, I'm going strictly on guitar tone. The guitar tone on this album is fucking very similar to what Skinny Puppy was doing on Rabies, and it's a weird album to have sharing like sonic characteristics. But there you have it.
Yeah, the guitar tone that they went with was I noticed they were using a lot of chorus, and it gives it a very like almost like kind of weird alien buzzy tone to it that I don't think was intentional, because I feel like Jim Martin was all about like clean metal tones, but it definitely has a weird timbre to it that I'm glad they went with, because it brought so much more character to the whole picture.
Yeah, I don't know if it was. I think it might have been Everything's Ruined. That when it started, it actually was the same chord as Tin Omen as well, just kind of like palm muting. And I'm like, oh shit, this is fucking Rabies, and there you have it.
Yeah,
I think the samples also were very similar to the Rabies, particularly like what was the track where they sample Charles Manson singing
Warlock.
Yeah. That definitely kind of has a similar, particularly in when they sample like the guitar, the
from Helter Skelter,
along with the electronic drums and the synth and stuff, kind of reminded me. But yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I would have drawn that comparison, but I totally see it now.
It's
all right, Nate.
Well, I can't say I've thought about this very critically, but I think just like Shot in the Dark, I'm gonna have to say Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. No, I'm totally kidding. But I don't really know. Like, this is an album that, like, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of like in its own league. Like, there's such like a niche for this kind of output in the year of our Lord 1992. You know what I mean? Like, I'd say it influenced a whole heck of a lot, like across the board. You know, like it influenced, sample heavy songs.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
It influenced a lot, but nothing that I'm like really familiar with am I able to draw like a comparison to that might have like influenced it. I
Just say Nicki Minaj.
All right, yeah, I'll say Pink Friday by Nicki Minaj.
Perfect.
Because I bought them on the same day.
There you go.
and that's as valid a comparable album as any.
Yeah.
You won. Kevin.
I'm gonna go with Pheasant Breast, the 4-song date. No, I'm kidding. That's our record. Everything I've ever
It's our
played has
record.
been
Bush Scrutiny. That's
furiously influenced. But I'm gonna have to go with a contemporary or a contemporaneous record. I guess like Reality of My Surroundings by Fishbone, or the subsequent Give a Monkey a Brain, as comparable. They came out at the same time. They were definitely doing a different thing, but had a similar, they were both time-stamped 1992, but also were kind of at the forefront of the fusion of sort of, R&B rhythms and heavy metal instrumentation with sampling and funky bass and stuff that paved the way for the living nightmare that brought us Mushroom Head. And
I mean, to check out
Soggy
Fishbone.
Muffin and Maze, were they called?
Karn.
Maze with an
Karn.
S.
Yeah,
Karn.
Backwards.
yeah, that was Richard Karn's project after he left Home Improvement, correct?
Spelled with a K.
Backwards R and Karn.
Oh man, we need to do that. like a black and white image of Richard Karn.
Oh my God.
That needs to happen.
It's just the same cover of like the swing set, except it's him sitting on the swings.
And also, I mean, for what it's worth, Reality of My Surroundings was also the last record that Fishbone recorded with their founding guitarist, Kendall. Kendall
there we
Jones.
go.
So,
A little parallel to draw.
so the moral of the story is guitarists
Get
should
rid
be
of your
removed
guitarist.
from the creative process as possible.
Well, John Frusciante, of course, on Blood Sugar Sex Magic was removed after that.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
There you go, hit
And
record.
then Dave Navarro was removed after One Hot Minute.
Wow,
That
so
album
they're-
kicks ass too.
So they're pretty similar,
Yeah.
I guess you'd say.
Yeah, we brought it on back.
I'm just
to those
sedately
hot
waiting
peppers.
for that shot in the back of the head. It's inevitable, and just counting the hours.
Speaking of
can't wait.
speaking of Richard Karn, I don't know if I told you guys, my friend from college was related to him. And
He was. He isn't anymore.
No, he is. And he found out because I guess he went to either a wake or a funeral, and Richard Karn was there. And
Jesus,
can
can you imagine how sobering that would be?
And he goes to his mother. Why is Al Borland here? Like, oh, he's your like second cousin or something like that. I don't know.
My God, Al from Home Improvement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The guy with the mustache and beard. He hosted Family
yes.
Feud.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
That show is awful. So my comparable album is this is going to be cheating a little bit, but I'll back it up. The self-titled album from Mr. Bungle, and that is because
The vocalist is so similar.
the vocal it's the same vocalist, and I mean, first of all, I think a lot of what Mike Patton was doing with Bungle, and I think having that sort of so that record was produced by John Zorn and was released on Warner Brothers, and I think just that gave him like that, coupled with like the success he was doing with Faith No More, kind of gave him a new like a sort of like a new sense of vision, I guess, and
Like a
where he
new
would.
well of inspiration.
And one
kind
new
of thing,
well
like-
of inspiration, and just like a new mission statement in terms of like what he was starting to take shit a little more seriously, and sort of like really figuring out who he was as a performer. Whereas, on The Real Thing, he was young, he was, just wearing kind of wacky outfits and like, his long hair, and it's very indicative of a young person who shows a lot of promise, and that's exactly what it was. And then like by going through Mr. Bungle and I think sort of like stretching those creative muscles, it gave him the confidence to bring Faith No More to the next level, to this sort of this weird next level. And I purchased this record around the same time that I got Angel Dust, and was sort of I was A-B'ing them a lot when I was in 9th grade, and they just, both of them were tremendous influences on how I would write music moving forward, and just the the sort of mantra with Mike Patton was like, you know, we're not lazy about writing music. We're not just gonna, you know, sign off on ideas, you know, just to get shit done. We're gonna try to get the best out of everything and sort of get the most out of every moment. And it's something that I just really appreciate. You know, and you know, Bungle's record is, you know, 10 times weirder than Angel Dust.
Yeah, I'd say that I'm picking up what you're putting down there, particularly comparing first track to first track. There's a lot of that like really carnival-esque, like really creepy, like those like really chromatic descending organ stuff like that. Like that's all like very like haunted carnival kind of stuff, and a lot of like the affectations vocally of like a carnival barker.
Exactly.
Like, he gets into that very like come on, you know, like I can help you, like that kind of shit. On quote unquote on self-titled, or is it quote unquote Travolta or Travolta quote unquote? I can never remember.
Well, they couldn't call it Travolta because it's Warner Brothers. They couldn't get the rights, so they had to call it quote unquote, which Trump is referenced in that song. I didn't. I totally forgot that. They meant
forget Simpsons did it, man. Mr. Bungle fucking did it.
Yeah, Mr. Bungle did it for. Well, the whole song is about just fucking fragile masculinity and you know, over-bloated male celebrities. And I forget what that last line is, but it's Trump, Swayze, Travolta, or something like that, to that effect.
Mr. Bungle did everything first, man.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
well,
he was a fucking maverick.
It's interesting you say, too, because you had, you know, Mike Patton like had recorded some of the demos with Mr. Bungle, which were all kind of like lo-fi, stripped-down affairs. Then was able to do the self-titled Mr. Bungle album with a little bit of money.
Yeah. And
then was able to do Angel Dust with like a shitload of money. And it's like, you definitely could see him kind of having to be like, let's make a record that's as weird as possible that will make them want to give us a lot of money again.
Exactly.
And then you almost see on King for a Day, which sort of was concurrent with Disco Volante, the two bands go in completely different directions, with Mr. Bungle just getting 100 times weirder, Faith No More getting 100 times more accessible.
Yeah, they scaled back the weirdness a little bit.
And then
which is weird because they had the fucking guitarist from Bungle on King for a Day, Trey Spruance.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to get in and out of the studio.
He was just getting a paycheck.
Just like, all right, is that good? And then
I'm not going on tour with you guys. Here's Dean Menta. Here you go.
Yeah,
bye.
Here's my card. And then they almost kind of did the opposite again, where you have sort of California, the most sedate Bungle record, along with Album of the Year, which almost is a regression back to wackiness. From King for a Day.
Yeah, Album of the Year is a weird record. I can't quite. It's odd, but also like accessible in some ways, and also kind of playing it safe in some ways. And that's kind of my thing with Soul Invictus too, where it's confident and competent. I'll give it that. All right, so let's rate this. What do you got, Jim?
I'm going to give it a 7. I've said this before. I'm a sucker for anything 90s rock. And I've always, I haven't really dug into Faith No More. I know, the bigger stuff like Epic and We Care a Lot. And
I remember the name of the other single, Falling to Pieces.
Midlife Crisis. And I've always thought Mike Patton had a pretty cool voice. And like I haven't dabbled. I guess I've dabbled a little bit in like Phantom Oz and Tomahawk and stuff like that. And I remember being on the bus and somebody listening to Mr. Bungle and me being like, what the fuck is Mr. Bungle? And then me checking it out. It was an Attleboro High School bus. But I don't think it's a perfect album. I don't think it sucks. I think it's a 7.
Cool. I'm going to give it a 6. And I really liked a bunch of the songs that were on this album, and some of them I didn't really like. But overall, kind of to echo Jim's sentiment, I really enjoy 90s content.
Yeah.
I like the sound of a 90s record that's done and produced well. So this is a pleasing listen. I'd definitely give it another spin and hopefully bump up that score a little bit when I get to know it a little bit better. But for right now, I'm going to have to go with a 6.
Yeah. It's a lot to take in on the first listen.
And another point, and I think it was Kevin who said earlier, it's a very front-heavy album, I think. Or was it Nate?
That was me, actually. But
I didn't say anything.
One of you did. And I totally agree with that. I feel like if you kind of chopped off maybe the last 3 songs, it would probably get maybe a little higher rating than me. I kind of started losing interest towards the end there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that's like about how I feel too. Like, I think this is a great album. Like, I love Mike Patton's body of work. Definitely a way bigger Bungle fan than a Faith No More fan, like, in general. But, like, as far as, like, this goes, like, this is the album that I've heard the most, like, songs off of. Like, I've heard a little bit from all of their albums, except maybe Soul Invictus. I haven't listened to anything off that. But I'd put it somewhere in, like, the 7 or 8. Like, anybody who hasn't given it a spin should really, you know, give it a listen. There's a lot of really important stuff going on this album. Like,
for sure.
That's not to be discredited. Like, there's too much, like, just brand new shit as far as, like, charting music goes. Like, just taking so much, like, really strange parts of, like, experimental music and then pushing them into charting territory without, like, tarnishing the unchartable aspect of it too much. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
So yeah, I'd put it somewhere in the mid pack, but this mid pack be hitting. Fucking 7 or 8, heavy 7. How about that?
Heavy 7.
I'll round it up to an 8 for scoring purposes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, Kevin.
I gotta give it a 10, man. This album was there for me when I needed it most. I mean, basically, and this is
Yes.
when I was 12 years old and nothing made any sense, and this record didn't make any sense except for that I knew that I loved it. And I knew that there were things in it that I would never forget, and I haven't. You know, there's a lot of music that I've listened to that at the time maybe I thought it was the best, that I've sort of gravitated away from. And I'm not a big fan of the 90s aesthetic. So for me, it's just, you know, who's to say what my opinion would be of this record if I were just hearing it for the first time now at the mature age of 25. But
happy birthday.
it's give or take my 2/3 birthday. So thanks so much. And
you look 2/3 older.
It's just like I can't like sit down and play a guitar without playing a riff like from this record without even thinking about it.
It provides like a huge well of inspiration that to draw from.
Yeah, and I can draw from each cut different stuff. It's like they don't really repeat themselves at all, and it just stands out in their repertoire and in Mike Patton's repertoire, and just as a 90s classic record. And it definitely, you know, like you guys are saying, it sort of brought some of these weirder things to the forefront without losing the weirdness, and paved the way for a lot of other mostly terrible music to follow. And for that, I feel bad, but
I don't. No, I think it's great. Like,
if only those new metal guys had just taken some of the more positive stuff and ran with that rather than
they were just too dumb.
Angry white
Smoked
boys,
too many
man.
mids.
I feel like I gotta say, I can't stress enough. I've been going back to it. I like planned in anticipation for appearing on the show. I plan to talk more about it, but I don't really know. It hasn't really like come up. You gotta check out this interview. I cannot stress this enough.
Yeah,
to the
it puts
listeners at
everything
home.
into context
Yeah,
in a way
like,
that
if you like this album, listen to it and you'll love it. If you don't like it, listen to it and you'll like it. If you love this album, you've probably already seen it. But like, holy shit, dude, it's like so good.
Well, I think he brings up a lot of prescient points about like the way we would consume music in the 2000s moving forward.
Yeah,
where,
he calls so
it.
many
He's
trends like
clairvoyant,
15 years
like-
out from the back. Like, it's just like, especially in part 1.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's like 5 parts of it on YouTube or something.
well, he
but just
talks a lot about like the cycles of nostalgia and
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, which is obviously huge right now. And like, I mean, it's basically just late stage capitalism, but
Yeah.
talks about that
But
too.
this was 92. This was before the late stage.
this is before it was cool.
yeah,
and
this was
before the late stage.
Black Crowes era nostalgia, to whom I think he actually does. Yeah. I think, you know, anyone would like to bang on a badger carcass, whether it's original or not is beside the point.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
Okay, indeed.
we're running out of time here. So I'm gonna give this. You know what? the adult in me wants to give this like an 8 or a 9 because I kind of know that it's not a perfect album in some ways, at least not to me. But I'm right with you, Kevin. I'm gonna give it a 10. It's just too goddamn important to my development as a songwriter. It was one of the records that like really started making me appreciate fusion and like bringing in other genres of music into the rock realm. I was writing mostly because of rock bands that I listened to, like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Metallica, Corrosion of Conformity, what have you. But these guys kind of came around and like brought me back to like kind of brought in these other elements of like industrial and jazz and like pop and shit that I just like really appreciated the way it brought this new level of engaging excitement and just like this very unique emotion to it this record has a very specific emotion to it, and I think you kind of hit it on the head. Whereas I was 15, nothing made any fucking sense. This record didn't even really make any sense, but I fucking loved it. That's all I knew. And I love Mike Patton. He's one of my favorite singers. Huge
You can
influence
definitely
on
hear
me.
them, Mike Patton and Patrick's vocal style for sure.
I'm basically just like Mike Patton and Steely Dan. Just throw that in a blender.
And some
Two
McDonald's.
extraordinarily disparate elements.
Yeah, and I'm sure Patton
Blended.
hates Steely Dan too. And yeah, I'm tempted to give it an 8, but I really just have to give it a 10. I love this record.
So that'll give us an 8.2 cumulatively.
Very cool. Very
Killer.
cool.
I'm glad that worked out that way because, like, yeah, I give it a 10, but I think it deserves an 8.2.
Yeah. In the grand scheme of like 90s
I know
records,
deep in my heart what is right.
Yeah, we're objective people.
It's
here.
yeah, because it's far from a perfect record. But
I think there's more to draw from it than like what the new metal crowd did. I think it's
Totally.
it like you said, it's important. It has these there's shit on it that's happening that you can take the attitude that they have towards songwriting and apply it to really any genre of music. If you're a fucking folk band, if you're just or like a grindcore band, a fucking like prog band, just like that, just taking that work ethic and applying it's an important lesson, I think. All right, hey, thank you so much for coming on the show, Nate and Kevin.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is a real hoot. This is a real treat. Thank you. Where can we find your music?
So, all right, bandcamp.com/Bush Scrutiny, I think. Maybe. If not, you can find it on YouTube.
yeah.
That's
With some original art by
Yeah, there's
Jake Moody.
original art by our good friend Jake Moody. It's just a pheasant on top of a bunch of breasts because the album's called Pheasant Breast. But yeah, Bush Scrutiny, Pheasant Breast. You can find the 4 tracks that we made like 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
You
I
can
still
come
got to
see
lay some
us-
drums down for it.
You can come see us April 18th at O'Brien's Pub in Allston, Massachusetts on Harvard Ave. We're playing with this band called Horse Burner, touring
from
touring
West
from West Virginia,
Virginia.
which is going to be pretty cool.
Holy shit!
I know.
Yeah.
I've
And,
always wanted to meet someone from West Virginia.
I
Let alone a
shoot for-
band. Like
Ryan
shoot for the
Agate
stars.
finds these like really fucking random ass bands. It's pretty
Yeah.
incredible where he pulls
So
them
yeah,
up.
Vos will be there. We'll get our scream and our tambourine on.
And this is with Vos, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Awesome.
Bush Scrutiny. You'll find us eventually. Look for a new album in 2020, 2021, something like that.
Same with Vos. We're really just trying to get it together. I mean,
Yeah,
you know.
we're hardly a band, but we got to plug
No, you guys
something.
are fucking great. I love
Hey,
you
thank
guys.
you
so much.
Check us out if you
I
agree.
saw you guys on the YouTube screen.
If you're listening and you'd like to, maybe record us for no money,
Or for short money, we could work something out.
Dude,
wash
anytime.
your car.
Please.
Anytime, I'll
Record-
do it.
record
if I
our
have
music.
the space.
All right, cool.
I'll be breathing on your neck the whole time. Just keep that in mind.
Perfect. That's how I do best. Jim, what do you got crack-a-lacking?
Not much. I've been kind of getting back into studio world.
How's the tub?
The tub's good. I'm excited to have a
Oh,
bathroom
I think
again.
we touched upon that on the last
talked about this.
episode.
Yeah.
I've transitioned from Tub Town to Studio Town.
Good.
I've been hanging out down there, playing a little actually guitar and starting to ramp up for what the fuck are we doing again? The sludge
Sludgy,
album?
yeah. We're doing our
Getting
Rampike
sludgy,
Sludge
and
album.
then I got to lay down some shit for Patrick and also Todd as well. So
Oh yeah,
Gotta
don't
get
worry
the-
about
gotta
that
get
shit.
Gotta get the drum. Gotta get the drum lube going.
Yeah. Word.
All right,
Christopher,
I'm
what do you got?
Just what he talked about. Fucking not much else.
Cool.
Just sitting around playing with my pud.
Yeah, check out Very Lumar too, but you've all heard that before.
Yes.
And Smell's got a new album out now.
Yo,
Check
it's
out.
dope. Yo, it's dope.
Oh, thank you.
Track
It's
4
good.
is so good, dude.
Yeah, and Nate is on it as well
Yeah, on track 4.
on Fake Blues.
Sounds like more than one song. It's
It is.
Faith No
There's
More
Yo, it's so
influence
good
really
though.
comes out.
To be perfectly honest, it's dope. You did a good
Thank
job.
you so much.
And
I'm actually like
should check it out if you
It's
haven't
called
yet.
Viva Lasagna. I'm super proud of it. I recorded it in all within the month of February, and it's on Spotify, Bandcamp, iTunes, and the rest. It's on YouTube too. Our favorite. So that's gonna about wrap it up for this episode of Old Men Yell at Cloud. You can check us out. We're on the Zero Science Podcast Network.
Could you spell Spotify for me? before we
Spotify. Is that the Zero Science theme?
No,
It's
that's
good.
Price is
Price is
Right
Right.
theme. I know that from anywhere.
Fuck yeah.
That was my ringtone back when I sold weed.
All right. That's going to wrap it up. Thank you. I am Patrick.
I'm Jim.
I'm Chris.
I'll see you.